Is it time for recess yet? I'm so glad you found time to join us here on the Child Care Director's Chair, where Erica Saccoccio shares her best practices that she's refined through her passion of directing childcare centers over the last 23 years. From parenting interaction, systems to save you time, money, and stress, to profitability. She shares it all from the Child Care Director's Chair.
Hey guys, Erica Saccoccio here with the Child Care Director's Chair, where we talk all things ECE to help you and other child care directors build your toolbox for success. And I'm very excited today. We have a guest on our show. But before we get into that, I would like to thank you for tuning in. You guys are making our podcast grow so quickly, and I'm always very appreciative. If this is your first time tuning into our podcast, welcome. If you're one of our listeners that listens daily, thank you for always coming back every day. That's what keeps us motivated to keep putting out content day after day after day, because we know you need it. I know I need it. I'm a childcare director just like you and a multi-location childcare owner. And so I know things sometimes are challenging, and we all have challenges. So don't let anybody fool you. No one is perfect, me included. But I just thought, we could just talk about like what's day to day in the field. So challenging behaviors is something that tends to come up a lot. A little bit more now as children have some challenges around socialization, and we have a lot of pandemic babies right now. So I wanted to talk about it today. So that made me reach out to some folks, and I invited Karla onto our show. Karla Saldivar, and I might say it wrong, but I'll have her correct me if I did. She is an educator who's passionate about early childhood development and trauma-informed education. With 15 years of experience in the early childhood field and 2 years in special education, Karla brings practical expertise to her work, and she's currently pursuing a master's degree in curriculum and development focused on trauma and resilience. She's deeply engaged in understanding how young minds grow, including neurodevelopment. She's originally from Houston, Texas, which we love Texas. It's always bigger in Texas, which is ironically one of our largest listening audiences. So, woo, Texas. Karla now shares insights while exploring Idaho's mountains with her family. So welcome to the show, Karla.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk about creating a positive and supportive environment, strategies for managing challenging behaviors in children. We'll focus on some practical strategies and techniques that directors can implement to create a positive and supportive environment for both the staff and the children with challenging behaviors. Because I know typically the staff will come to you as the leader of their program, as they should, when they're like, I just don't know what to do anymore. So we wanted to talk about that today. But before we do that, Karla, tell folks a little bit about how did you come to the work that you're doing now?
It actually started with motherhood and just, everything that comes with that. And my sister is actually an occupational therapist. And so she kind of got into the realm of just talking about regulation. And so we kind of together both started digging deeper, and I just ventured into the world of trauma that way. And just, it's something everybody has, but we think of trauma as this grand event that's super traumatic, but in reality, can be the smallest thing.
It could be a goldfish died.
Yes,
it really could. It could be, but
yeah.
For somebody it could be, right?
Yeah.
So and I think today's episode, although I will come at it with a teacher's lens, I think I also look at it from a parent perspective. My son, I really don't share this a lot on the show, but my son is adopted, and he had a great deal of trauma prior to our adopting him. And I've had him as a part of our family. I'm very lucky. I love him to death for, about 17 years now. And he's about 21. He'll be 22 this month. So I get it from a parent perspective too. And so I think it's, really an important topic.
Yeah.
So let's talk about maybe what are some common challenging behaviors in children and why they occur. Let's why, like you said, it could be the littlest thing, but
Yeah.
what are some of the common challenging behaviors?
Yeah. I mean, I think immediately we can all think of behaviors that trigger us, right? But it's just any tantrums, defiance, withdrawal, aggression, just all of that. Just, I guess it can depend on the teacher too, because we're going to be triggered by different things. So
Yeah. So you have to be mindful of your own, your own energy that you're giving off. And and not having that preconceived either. Like if you have a child who maybe challenges you or challenges your authority or challenges your rules in the classroom, like be aware, because the more reactive you get, that can really escalate the behavior. And you got to remember, you're the person in charge of the classroom, right? You're the one that everybody's looking for. Just don't mind that. We're across from the fire station, and so that happens sometimes. So I apologize. Like you have to be mindful of that. The energy that you're giving out, or that preconceived, like, oh, do I have to deal with that kid today again? It's really important, because if you're giving that off, the child already knows.
Yeah. And they say once the behavior is no longer about the child, you have to take a step back and look at yourself and ask yourself why you are so triggered by that. What is behind all of that?
Okay. That's okay. So, how do you feel like creating a positive, supportive environment can help manage some of the challenging behaviors in children?
Well, you might have heard the Montessori approach. The third teacher is considered the environment. So having, so, and that's everything, so having that, it just encourages the trust and safety and that emotional regulation for the students. I want to make sure that, so there's a difference in being a perceived safety, right? So we know that the classroom is safe, but does it feel safe to the student? And so being able to watch them and be aware of things that might trigger them, even such as the lighting or a certain noise, like a fire truck could have triggered your student, and they could be showing all different kinds of behaviors now, and just being in tune with them. Yeah.
I think too, one of the things, again, like so many of you, I was in a class all day today, which I love, because that keeps me really, I feel like for directors, the more that you spend time on the floor, it really does keep you very grounded in the work that you do. The other thing is, I think when you have a student in your classroom who may have a challenging behavior, also helping the students in the classroom have empathy, or when a child is having a tantrum, to let the students know they're okay, they're safe, move away, give them space, right? Because that happened today. We had a little girl who was upset, and she kind of threw some things on the floor, and the other kids were like, she's throwing there. I said, I understand. She's upset. Let's give her space. She's going to calm down. When she's ready to calm down, we can help her pick up the things, or she can do it herself. We'll ask her what she'd like to do. So, also I think, because it's a classroom, it's a community. So, and I love, what you said, the environment. Another thing that can really help, depending on what the challenging behavior is, because like you said, like you got to get kind of to the root of it. So sometimes it's boundaries, right? Sometimes children have issues with boundaries. So one of the things that we do is we use, almost like Montessori, little trays, right? Where the materials are in there, and then the child can pick the tray that they want and move to the space that they want and work freely. And you don't have everybody like, oh, I was going to take that Lego, I was going to have it first, So it gives everybody that sense of space. And if they want to work alone, they can work alone. If they want to work with someone else, they can. So, setting yourself up, setting the environment up, and thinking what the children need is certainly very important, as you alluded to, that third person there in the room, the third teacher, and the environment. And for even the teachers too, because if you have a good flow of your day,
for sure,
and in a sense of structure and what comes, what's going to happen now, next, and that's why when subs are in a room, sometimes the room goes awry, right? Because that consistency isn't always there, or you might run this room a little bit different than the person who
Yeah.
normally runs the room, which
Yeah.
can throw off kids, which is why it's so hard to be a substitute teacher.
Yeah. For sure.
which
Well,
which brings us in. Yeah,
that,
go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, just the boundaries, that all goes back to safety too. It just helps setting those clear expectations. And if a child knows what to expect, then they have a sense of safety. So they're able to relax and those triggers are going to be minimized. So,
Yeah. So let's dig a little bit deeper. What do you like? Let's talk about what is the role of consistency and clear expectations, and what does that play in terms of managing challenging behaviors? Can we get a little bit more specific? Let's say like we have a new childcare director who's listening, and they're like, "Well, what exactly do you mean by clear expectations?"
from in a classroom,
Yeah.
is that what you're, okay? So,
Yeah.
anything that child needs to know that the second they come in, they need to be able to know what's happening. They need to, sorry, my pencil keeps showing up.
That's okay. That's okay.
They need to, just having a visual schedule for them. They need to be able to see it. They need to hear it all day long. Whenever there's a schedule change, they need to know it's sitting down and telling them, hey, tomorrow we're going to have a so-and-so visit and this is what it's going to look like. This is what we're going to do. Or tomorrow is donuts with dad. Your dad's going to come in the morning and then you get to tell him goodbye. And just working through all of that and just every day-to-day interaction, as long as just setting that up for, they know 100% what's going to happen.
Yeah. And I think it's important too, because I think right now with such struggles in staffing, there's a real possibility that there's going to be a substitute teacher in your classroom some point in the next 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
So, having not only that schedule for the students, but those who are covering in that room, assisting the teacher and the children, like, so that there's that predictability.
Yeah.
And I think just that consistency again helps with cutting down behaviors that may escalate somebody. And what about transitions? Because I think kids have some challenges around transitions sometimes.
For
So
sure.
let's talk about that. Like, so what is your best recommendation on transitioning?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
And so used to having everything in front of them right away that we forget that innovation just takes time. I myself, I get frustrated too. Why? And this as being one of my best friends is, hey, I talk to you all the time. Hey, man, I'm frustrated in the fact that I can't seem to just get there in the next day. But that's just not how these things work, right? Innovation needs to be planned out. It needs to be very methodical. And then when it finally hits, that's when it seems like to everyone else that it sort of just came out of nowhere. But to you, the amount of dedication that it took over that time.
Again, it's preparing, setting that, expectations of what's going to happen. So, especially the beginning of the year, I really work on that. But just doing things like dimming the lights or setting a timer and telling them, hey, we're going to clean up in 5 minutes. And then you have that timer, but you also do the lights. And then I've noted I had a child who was very sensitive to transitions, and I actually had to go and prepare him that I was going to announce that transition was going to happen soon. So it was almost like a warning before the event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I love that you said that. And I think that is a really important nugget that people should take, because if you do use a timer, that will help a lot of children.
Yeah.
But that also could really stress someone out.
Yes.
Because, oh my God, I only got, think about it. Think about it. You even as an adult, right?
Yeah.
You're like, oh my God, I only got 5 minutes. I got 5 minutes, right? That could really cause some anxiety. So I love that you say, go over to the student that may have a little bit of a challenge transition and say, Johnny, I just want to let you know. I don't know why I would say Johnny. Johnny and Susie always get in trouble on my show. But, Johnny, I want to let you know. I want to let you know we have a couple minutes. Is there anything I can do to help you get ready to go out in the playground? Or, do you want me to help you clean up? Or something that will help that child ease in a little bit more. So I think that that's important. And what about, that also makes me think about positive reinforcement. So what do you think about positive reinforcement and how that can play a role?
I have mixed feelings about positive reinforcement.
Mm-hmm.
I think that sometimes it can be overdone, and sometimes it can just turn negative without us meaning to or even thinking about it. I think it's great. I did like clean up bubbles. So if they were cleaning, I'd go around and blow bubbles on them, and they loved it. Stickers are great. Uh, Behavior charts. I know that's not necessarily positive reinforcement, but behavior charts, they're finding that there's more negative impact on with them than positive because it's public scrutiny. You wouldn't want a director putting all the staff on a board and saying,
Yeah.
hey, we were late.
You're
and
late all
we
the
did
time.
this. Yeah, you wouldn't like that, So, and that's what we're doing to children.
Yeah.
But
I think too when we talk about positive reinforcement, you can even make it about the child. Like, let's say they clean up. You could turn around and say, you must feel really proud. You were able to do that
yeah,
all by yourself, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
make it that
yeah.
way. She's like, that's a good one, Erica. But make it about, because we want to build self-esteem
Yeah.
in children, and we want them to feel good. So
Yeah.
it's the opposite of, you saying, well, you three did a great job, and you three are still working on it. You're not listening, right? So that's a great way to flip it. And then also the other thing I find is when you say that, wow, you must be really proud of yourself. Look at how you did that. Other children start to take note of that, and they'll start to say, well, look at me. What about me? Look, I put my right. And you're like, you're right. Oh my goodness, right? Great job. You keep working. You always surprise me. You keep growing, so those positive things that you want the child to feel good about what they're doing,
Yeah.
So, because I don't think it always has to come from the adult.
No, it does. Yeah. No. And I
Yeah.
think, and one of the key things there is that builds relationship, and that's the core of behaviors and everything. The relationship is the most important thing that you can have in your classroom. So just anything.
I'm gonna stop and just let you say that again.
Okay. The relationship is the most important thing you can have in the classroom. Yeah.
So, you will find in centers all over the land that there will be one teacher who will walk in and say, Johnny, can you put on your coat? And the child instantly goes over and puts on their coat.
Yep.
After you've asked 22 times, right? That is because they have already built that relationship. That child knows what to expect from that teacher. That teacher knows how to connect with that child. So yes, the relationship is extremely important. And so the flip side of that, if you're constantly balking at that child, or you never have anything positive to say about that child is not going to respond to you, and you're going to find that those tantrums, escalating behaviors, etc., they're going to continue, and they're probably going to get more, to the point where it doesn't matter what you say, that child's never going to listen to you.
Yeah.
And I think too, the other thing that happens a lot is teachers are very quick, and I'm sorry guys, I'm going to throw you under the bus for a minute. Teachers, in my experience, not all of them, in my experience, are very quick to give their power away. He's not listening to me. You go into the office, right?
Yeah.
Or this child needs to go in a different room, or I need Miss So and So to come in because this child doesn't listen to me. The minute you do that, you're telling that child, I don't have the skills to deal with you.
Yeah.
I don't have the patience to deal with you, whatever it might be, right? I don't feel the connection to invest in our relationship. So, Karla, that brings me to de-escalating challenging behaviors. Do you have any advice on how to do that? Because that's, one of those areas, once children really get escalated, it's really hard to bring them down. So the real primary goal would be to try to de-escalate before things get really out of control.
Yeah, it really comes back to just how you were talking about the teacher who's made that relationship. It comes back to being able to have that and the importance of it. Because once we go from responding to reacting, it's not about the student anymore. It's about us. And so being able to stay calm or recognize that we're getting worked up and triggered, and maybe asking for someone to step in for a minute while we take a deep breath to get ourselves back together so we can come in and be calm and be present with that child. But I think, doing things like distraction, it works, but sometimes I don't think it's always the best. But redirection, and instead of ever using time out, time in should be what's needed, sitting with that child. And sometimes it's not even talking, it's just being present,
Yeah.
and or sitting next to them and letting them stomp their feet and kick and yell, and just sitting next to them and being that calm person, so that when they're ready, you're ready
Yeah. I
and
think
you're present.
Yeah, I think too, and I love that you said that, being present. So that brings me two things to my mind. The first would
Mhm.
be sometimes children need you to kind of articulate what they're feeling because sometimes they don't know. So it's
Mhm.
okay to say, I can see you're upset.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So I think sometimes, again,
Mhm.
depending on the age, but helping them identify those feelings. And if you have some
Yeah.
type of emotional charts or different types of tools in a
Mhm.
little toolbox, if you will, of things that will help
Yeah.
children de-escalate, to calm down. There's breathing techniques, which today, towards the end of the day, and going back to what
Mhm.
you said, sometimes the teacher needs a minute. I feel like doing mindfulness, yoga, breathing in your class as part of regular curriculum is another way to
Mhm.
help. Right? It might be
Yeah.
everybody. You know what? We're gonna pause. Let's all come to the
Mhm.
rug and gather because I just did this
Yeah.
today. We're going to
Yeah.
take a minute. Let's come on out to the
Yep.
rug. We put on a 5 minute, you don't even have to be a yogi, put on a five
Mhm.
minute guided meditation. The entire class did it. They loved it. And I asked, how did that feel? And one girl said, powerful. And I was like, I love the way that you identified that. She was like 4 years old.
That's
She,
cool.
I
Yeah.
feel powerful. Just, again, being present, being able to self
Mhm.
regulate. And this isn't just for children who have challenging behaviors, but
Mhm.
all children and the
Yeah.
teachers, right? It all gave us a minute to pause. Let's stop. Let's reel it back in. Let's be reflective. And let's, be in tune with each other's energy, right? And so that
Yeah,
I
for
felt like
sure.
that was a great day. And at the end of the day, I
Mhm.
felt like we all were at a point where the room had gotten a little bit loud, and it was the end of the day, and parents started picking up, so it started to get a little busy. So we did that, and then after
Mhm.
we did that, we read a story. But everybody at that point was calm. Everybody was, in a space where we're happy. We can continue to enjoy our
Yeah.
time together. So
Yeah.
I thought that was something to be noted. Any
Mhm.
other
For sure.
ideas or tips on de-escalating?
Well, going back to the calm down corner, kind of is what you're talking about. Um, I think every classroom should have one of those.
Yeah.
And they're actually finding that the programs and the schools that have the most success with these social emotional, not courses, but lessons, that's the word I'm looking for,
Hmm.
um, that it's actually campus wide. So it's implemented every day, and it can be the same time, it can be different times, but every classroom's doing it. So as directors, that's something that we can make sure is happening at our schools. Because then when this child, no matter where they go throughout that campus, the same words are going to be used, the same things are going to be said to them. So there's that community that's being built.
Yeah, that goes back to consistency, right? So if
Mm-hmm.
that's
Yep.
done and
Yep.
implemented in every classroom, then
Mm-hmm.
no matter who's in the room, again, as you said, it would be cohesive,
Mm-hmm.
and that any child who was having a problem with self-regulation would know there's a toolbox, would know they could go in the safety
Mm-hmm.
area, would know that they wouldn't need
Yeah.
to ask, they would just know that would be part of
Yeah.
anything else, like washing your hands. It would just be part of how we regulate our classrooms. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's
Yeah.
that's that's great advice. What about active
Mm-hmm.
listening?
I mean, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but being able to just help them identify what you're seeing or what you're hearing, like, oh, it looks like you're feeling angry, or you're it sounds like that made you feel sad, and just helping them process that, and just working through that and being present.
Yeah. So I think what I'd like to say about that is sometimes that's a skill that teachers or leaders need as
Mm-hmm.
well, to practice active listening. I will speak for
Yeah.
myself. I am very high energy. Probably already figured that out, but I'm very high energy. And sometimes I can talk over people, and I don't do it intentionally. It is the way that my brain works, right? So I've been
Mm-hmm.
working on trying to listen to what somebody is saying before waiting to like answer and respond.
Yeah.
I've been,
Yeah.
but I know that, right? And so I think this is
Mm-hmm.
where being a reflective teacher or leader can really
Yeah.
benefit you in these types of situations, to really hear what that child is saying to you, and then try to decode, are they really saying what they mean, or are they saying something else? And I have, this could be just my Italian culture or whatever. So there's a few children that I always say, there's these three things that will help solve their problem. They either need a nap, they need a snack, or they need a hug. One of those three, and it almost works every time. And then today I was talking to some kids at the table, and I said, "What? You're gonna die laughing at this." I said, "What's your favorite thing at school? Where's your, the favorite thing that you do with your teacher?" And her response was, "My favorite thing is going to the office." And I went, "Going to the office?" And she said, "Yes. I love time with you, Miss Erica, in the office when it's just you and me." But how telling is that? How telling is that?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that leader, that director might have a great relationship with the child, and they may want to be sent to the office. So you're almost reinforcing the bad behavior to get to where we want to go. So just be mindful of that. And, because I think that probably happens a lot. And there's lots of things on TikTok. Teachers, again, lots of things of, oh yeah, they just send him to the admin and they give him a snack and they come back with a lollipop. Okay, there's probably some truth to that, but it's because we need the child to be in a place where we can talk. I can't talk to somebody who is escalated, just like you can't talk to a upset parent. You got to let them de-escalate a little bit before you can have a real conversation where anybody's listening to each other. So, as an admin, many of us know there's three things that are going to solve that problem. And again, sometimes it's a nap, sometimes it's a snack, sometimes it's a hug, right? But those are things that will calm a child and reinforce, like, you're safe, we're okay, let's talk about what's going on. So we do get a lot of, gruff for it on the social media platforms, but it does work. It does work. And teachers, we really do have your back, but we need the child to be in a place where we can talk. Yeah,
for sure. That kind of made me think of so Maslow's hierarchy of needs, some of the most, it's safety and then connection and the value of relationships. So our deepest desire is for that connection. So whoever we find that with is who we're going to want to be with, which makes sense if they want to come to you because they've built that.
Yeah. That's literally my
it's cool.
That's
it
my
also
literally
has,
that's literally my favorite that's literally my favorite theorist. And what I think is amazing is that isn't just child development, right? Because as we move up through as human beings, right, we want to get to a point where we get that self-actualization and feel accomplished. And so that isn't just children. We're all going through the hierarchy of needs, right? You're not going to care about what lesson's going on if you're hungry and you didn't eat breakfast, right? So that's why I say sometimes it's a snack. Or maybe it's not a snack. Maybe it's breakfast. But there are children who may come to you who didn't sleep that night. Maybe mom and dad had an argument. Maybe they slept in a car at a hotel. There's a lot of things that go on for these children. Some children are in your program for 10 hours a day. That is a long time to keep it together. They're there longer than some of your staff, right? Staff work an 8-hour day or 8.5-hour day if you add in the lunch break or whatever. Some children are there longer than that, right? And even if they're not, they probably had to wake up an hour or two before they got to your program. They're little, right? Or how about the kids who don't nap and they're just exhausted by 4:30? Or maybe you might have foster children who get a little anxious when everybody's picking up and their parent or guardian or foster parent hasn't come yet. And so you might start to see escalated behaviors towards the end of the day because they have some anxiety around it, right? I know for sure I've seen that in my program. What about you?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I would say most probably challenging behaviors happen early in the morning, around the drop off, right? Or towards the end of the day where...
Or lunch.
Yeah, right? Or lunch, right? Everybody hates nap. One of the kids said, why are we going to have quiet time? I'm like, we have to reset for the day. So what about, what are some techniques that you think would be good for setting boundaries and consequences in a positive, supportive way?
I think anything that we can do to make sure that we're lifting that child up and not belittling them is going to be helpful. Right? So no isolation, which is timeout, no public scrutiny or losing outside time. That's one of the worst things you can do because nature is the number one spot where we are able to regulate ourselves.
Yeah.
And there is a difference between a boundary and a request.
Mm-hmm.
So a boundary is when I say I'm going to do something and it doesn't require anything from the child. And a request is, don't touch that, but there's the ability for them to touch it, where I could say, I'm going to stand here so you can't touch it. Or I need you to stand over here instead.
Yeah.
And so I think just being proactive in what we do and when we say stuff is key.
And you had mentioned about not going outside. Well, one, you're
I know everybody.
yeah. So what I would say is I know in our state it's actually a regulation that you cannot punish a child by taking away outside
Good.
time. So I don't know if
Good.
that is across the board, but
It's not everywhere.
okay. Well,
Yeah.
it is in Rhode Island, but yeah, we're very lucky in New England. I have to say our standards are extremely high when it comes to early childhood education. So I'm very proud of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think too, again, like you said, like you're almost setting that child up in your classroom for failure when you do that, because that child does need that active time, active play to get that energy out and to be able to, again, regulate and be able to breathe. I mean, sunshine, not that it's sunny around here a lot, but sunshine changes your mood, right?
No,
Fresh air changes your mood.
And you don't have to go outside. You can use inside. You can play nature sounds. You can have a plant in your classroom. There's other things you can do when you can't go outside. It's just one of, that's for our bodies.
Yeah.
So
I talked with Julie Anderson, who's called AKA Brain Lady, and she talks a lot about brain development. She was on our show last week, and she was talking about just that, about nature sounds and using that in your classroom to help children to kind of feel a sense of calm and stability. Like, just as human beings, that's natural for us, that those sounds are soothing, which is why at night you might listen to the sounds of the ocean or raindrops. Those things are just naturally help us calm down. So that's a great suggestion that you had there. How about being collaborative with like problem solving? Like, how can we work together to problem solve and address challenging behaviors for students? Because it has to be a team effort.
It does. And ideally, it would involve the parents. That's
a given. That's a given.
Yeah.
That's a given. Yeah.
And it can be hard though, and sometimes we forget that those tiny positive interactions that we can have or share with the parents make a big impact. It helps to build that relationship and create that consistency in that community. And like even having the social emotion lessons throughout your building, all of that, just working together and being together.
Yeah.
Is all part of that.
Yeah. And the other thing is, as an educator, I feel like it's our job we're the ones who went to school for child development, right? Maybe the parent, maybe the parent has it, maybe they don't, but we're setting them up for success. And those children will be moving from our programs to public schools, etc. And so I do believe it is that team approach. And it also needs to be written, because I feel like if you don't have like a written plan, not everybody's on the same page. So maybe that looks like, here's what we're going to do at school. Because again, everybody needs to talk the same language. If you're using something at school, but it's different than at home, it's a little bit confusing for a child who's under the age of 5, for sure. So that consistency of everybody in your classroom, the leadership, what are they going to do? If XYZ happens, because the teachers do need to be supported. It isn't like you send the kid to the office for 10 minutes and then they leave and then like they're humming cheers across the room. Like, that isn't okay. It's not safe. We do need to keep all of our other students safe, and we do have a duty to do that. And we have a duty to our teachers to make sure that they also are supported and, like you said, have their mental health, and maybe they need a break or something like that. We actually build at one of our locations. We're very lucky. We have a spa that's downstairs, and they have a room called the Zen Den. And so the teachers get gift cards very frequently that they can use to go down to the Zen Den. And it's a very cozy room, and it's got a sound machine in it. It's got dimming lights. It's got tea. It's got water. You can go and just chill on a beanbag, but it's almost like I don't want to say a teacher timeout, but almost like a teacher recharge. And they can go down on their lunch break. So if you have, and this was a utility closet. It's pretty good size, but it was a utility closet that we converted. And so if you have extra space in your building, your program, or a closet that really doesn't necessarily, and again, it was a bigger closet. It wasn't like a little closet, but a bigger closet where you could put a couple beanbags, things like that. You can really put in a space for teachers also to be able to recharge, and because self-care is super important, especially when you are working with children who have challenging needs, or just the daily demands. It's a long day for everybody. So is there anything you would like to share with the listeners, or anything I didn't ask you that you really want to talk about?
No, I did have a thought about when we were talking about positive reinforcement. For some kids, that actually can set them off. And so if you notice that their behavior increases, or not worsens, I don't want to use that word, but if you notice that they're triggered by that positive interaction, it's actually telling, their brain might be telling them that they're not safe, right? Because they never get that. So they're not used to that. And so they're going to shut down and get out of that situation. And they don't want to be seen as hardworking or, you're proud of them, right? So that's why I really like too when you said, wow, you must feel proud, because you put that emotion on them and it's not coming from you.
Yeah. So again, I that parent hat is really where a lot of that came from. And I just had this conversation with my son the other day. We were driving, we were having a very thoughtful conversation about life. And he was starting to feel negatively about himself in the moment. And I said to him, honey, you don't always have control of your emotions. I said, because you're always in constant fight or flight mode. And when you have faced significant trauma, this is a very real thing for these children or even adults. If he, and almost like what you said, when he starts to feel good about himself or feels like good things are coming, it's almost sometimes they might self-sabotage. And so, yes. So they do need that constant reinforcement, that safety net, that, I'm going to love you unconditionally, no matter what you do. It's important that children feel that and know that that's true. And the more that they know that that's true, the better connection you're going to have.
Yeah. And it takes time. You're not going to see that change instantly. You're literally rewiring their brain. So it's going to be repetitions over and over and over again. And you're going to get exhausted.
You missed an over.
Yeah, I know.
But at the same time, not to sound cliche, but when you see that growth, it is amazing. And to think that you had like a part of that is amazing. And as an educator, I've been doing this a long time, 25 years. I can't tell you how many students come back to me and say, being in your program was some of the best memories of my life. And makes me want to cry. Literally the other day it happened. There was a girl who had come in, and I didn't do her tour, and she was in the infant room, and I walked in and she said, "Hi, Miss Erica." And I said, "Hey, how are you?" And she said, "Good. Do you remember me?" I said, "Of course, Sarah, I remember you." And she was so flippant. I was like, "I loved coming here, and now I might bring my daughter here." And on the paperwork, she's been married, so she had a different last name. So as soon as I saw her, and I haven't had her for, probably 14, 15 years now. At that point, I was running a school age program. But my point is what we are doing for our students as directors, as educators, makes a difference. And I know that sounds cliche, but if there's anybody who's, I'm telling you, it's true. And these children are going to remember you, whether you are in their life for 1 year or you've been in their life for 10 years. You have an impact on how they feel about themselves as a human being, positive or negative. So when children have challenging behaviors, I'll wrap it up this way. When children have negative behaviors, you have to really make sure that child doesn't internalize that behavior as part of them. It is an emotion, it's an emotion. It's something they're going through at that moment. But at the end of the day, they're still a worthy, wonderful human being who contributes to your classroom community, no matter how stressful you feel about it. It's important to keep yourself in check. You are the adult in the room, and they're looking to you for guidance. So directors, please support your staff, support your children. Karla, before we head out, is there anything you'd like to add?
I think those were really good final words.
Yeah, and you did great on your very first podcast. So thank you so very, very much for being a guest. success. If you loved the content in this show and this conversation, we ask that you please support our channel for as little as $3 a month. You can become a supporter. Look at the links below. There is a Buzzsprout link. Please, please, please be a supporter of our show. Tell a friend. You guys are doing such a great job already with that. But tell a friend. I really want to work hard to get our podcast to be one of the top ECE podcasts in the country. So thank you for your help. You guys are doing a great job. And remember, it's the little details that make the biggest impact in the success of your childcare business. That's it for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great day. Bye.
Well, all the cute little kiddos have been picked up and it's time to go home. And that'll do it for another episode of the Child Care Director's Chair. Please leave a review so Erica knows the information is helping you to manage and improve your childcare centers. Remember to subscribe to get the latest episode from Erica's Child Care Director's Chair.